When we think about the age of exploration, we usually picture these heroic captains, right? Staring off into the sunset. But what if the real hero of the story wasn't a person at all? What if it was technology? I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? For pretty much all of human history, the open ocean was this scary, bottomless void. It was a wall. You just didn't sail out of sight of land if you ever wanted to see home again. So what on earth changed? How did that wall just disappear? Well, look at this. It's a total flip. Europe goes from being basically a dead-end street on the edge of the world to the absolute center of a new global highway system. And the answer wasn't just about people suddenly getting braver. It was about them getting smarter tools. Okay, so the first problem you gotta solve is the biggest one, the pure terror of getting lost. The first key to unlocking the world was all about navigation, literally learning how to see in the dark with nothing but open water for miles and miles. I mean, just try to wrap your head around this. It's a reality that's so hard for us to imagine today. If that coastline vanished over the horizon, you were basically floating in a void. No GPS, no maps of what's ahead, nothing. Your odds of finding your way back were pretty much zero. It was a death sentence. So, how'd they fix it? With a brand new toolkit for sailors. First, you get the compass. Now you can hold a steady direction day or night. Then, you get the astrolabe. This clever device lets you figure out your latitude, basically how far north or south of the equator you are. And finally, you start making better maps to actually record where you've been. Put it all together, for the first time ever, captains had the confidence to turn the ship towards the open sea. All right, so you've got your navigation sorted. You know where you're going, but what are you going to drive? What kind of ship can actually survive that trip and, get you back home in one piece? You needed a whole new kind of vehicle. And here it is, the caravel. This thing, developed by the Portuguese, was a total game changer. Think of it like the space shuttle of the 15th century. It was small, it was fast, it was nimble, and it was built for one job and one job only, exploring the deep unknown. And what's so cool is how every single part of it solved a deadly problem. See those triangular sails? They're called lateen sails. They let a ship zigzag against the wind. Why is that a big deal? Because it means you can actually get home again. The ship had a shallow draft, so you could explore up rivers and weird coastlines without getting stuck. And the rudder at the back? That gave you control in the kind of insane ocean storms that would tear older ships apart. But here's the thing. Just showing up in a new place was only half the battle. If you wanted to survive, to trade, to actually establish a foothold, you needed more. And that's where the final keys come in. The ones that turned exploration into dominance. Now, the first of these keys, and you might not expect this, wasn't on a ship. It was the printing press. All of a sudden, secret knowledge wasn't so secret anymore. You could mass-produce maps, navigation manuals, stories from other explorers, and that knowledge spread like wildfire, creating an entire generation of people who knew how to sail the world. And that amazing explosion of knowledge got paired with something a lot more direct: military force. Pretty soon, exploring and projecting power became two sides of the very same coin. Because in the 1460s, someone had the brilliant, or terrifying idea to mount cannons on these caravels. And just like that, the exploration vessel becomes a floating fortress. Even a tiny little fleet could show up with overwhelming firepower that coastal cities had just never seen before. And this quote about Vasco da Gama in India, wow, it says everything. He shows up and his small fleet just demolishes these much larger local fleets. Why? Because of a total tech mismatch. The Indian ships were built to ram and board. Da Gama's ships could just sit back and blast them out of the water from a distance. Game over. So you put all those keys together, the navigation, the ships, the shared knowledge, and the weapons, and what do you get? You get a world that is suddenly and permanently unlocked. The theory became reality. Just look at this timeline. It is absolutely staggering how fast it all happened. These aren't just dates. These are world-shattering events, breaking down barriers that had stood for thousands of years. And they all happened within a single lifetime. The entire map of the planet was redrawn in just a few decades. So you see, there wasn't one single magic bullet. It was this powerful combo. These four pillars working together. You had the navigation to know where you're going, the shipbuilding to get you there, the weaponry to project power, and the printing press to share the knowledge and do it all again, bigger and better. And that brings us to the most important takeaway of all. If you remember one thing, make it this. Technology didn't just help the age of exploration, it was the age of exploration. Without these tools, it simply could not have happened, period. Which, of course, leaves us with a really interesting question for our own time. When you think about exploring deep space, or the bottom of the ocean, or even the wild frontiers of AI, what are the key technologies today that are unlocking our next great age of exploration?